welcome back to the Benchwarmers podcast. As you can see, we're all wearing our newly sponsored Principale Society jumpers. As you can see, they're very vibrant, we're looking very colourful, and they're obviously great quality. So I recommend visiting them on Instagram and maybe even purchasing one for yourself. But yeah, there is the home and away season effectively over and done with for 2020, and now the All-Australian squad has just been released. James, I want to take your thoughts on the All-Australian squad.
Yeah, there's definitely a few players that raised a few eyebrows. There's players that deserve the spot that are there, but yeah, I feel that overall it's a pretty good squad, but I feel like there were some players that missed out that should have or rightly deserved the spot over another.
Who do you think was sort of snubbed or robbed of an All-Australian jacket?
I think not even to be in the 40-man squad, Jake Lloyd. I feel that he's been a player that's been the backbone of Sydney for the last few years. I think to not even get a mention in the 40 squad is pretty disappointing. But also Ridley from the Bombers. I feel that he had a good year. With what he could. Essendon didn't go that well, but I feel that he held him up, and I feel that he is someone that got robbed.
Yeah, definitely. Both of those players obviously had awesome seasons. Josh, I want to ask you a question. Do you think that maybe the All-Australian lineup for each year is not does not represent players' performances for that year as much anymore? I mean, you see sort of Dustin Martin and Patrick Dangerfield and Marcus Bontempelli, all of these players sort of always finding their way into the All-Australian squad. But do you think that it's not as representative of an actual player's performance throughout that season?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. You've got to try and see where the selectors are coming from, because to some extent they're looking at statistics, but to another extent they're looking at probably the best players in their opinion. And when I say the best players, they're talking about the best players on paper. So like Patrick Dangerfield is obviously one of the best in the league. Did he have a better season than probably a midfielder who was snubbed? Maybe not, but who knows, In the end, it's all up to them. So I don't have too big a problem with the squad. Obviously, there was a couple that I would have liked to have seen over others, but overall, I'm pretty happy with it.
Yep, definitely. Connor Brown, I want to ask you. There was a bit of controversy in the media with, Burn Jones and Brad Shepherd being put into the All-Australian squad. What are your thoughts on this, and maybe who do you think should have taken their spots if you think that they didn't deserve it?
And I think he's someone who, look, I don't know if this is a bit ambitious, but could be in All-Australian contention. He's played out of his skin. It's a big call, but yeah.
Fair call, mate. Very, very fair call. You're right. It is a bit ambitious with the All-Australian. We'll just see how he goes for the rest of the year, I guess. Other players might fall off. And he has had a very solid 2020 campaign.
A lot of players will have to fall off.
A lot of players will have to fall off. That's right, Josh. You can talk about that another time.
You know who I'm going to say. Jordan Ridley. Look, I don't think those players obviously had a bad season by any means, because they've made All-Australian and, people go, how did he make it? I think if you look at Port Adelaide, they've held up all year, top of the table. But was Burn Jones, one of those top players that held Port Adelaide together? It's questionable. When I look at Essendon, you look at Jordan Ridley, who won our BNF by like 30 votes. I mean, there was no question that, for a player who's played less than 30 AFL games to make a list of the 40 All-Australian, it was superb. But then again, the team didn't have success. So I feel like there's a sort of trend around teams that had success, as in players who made it, which is therefore Shepherd and Burn Jones, top teams in West Coast and Port Adelaide. And then you look at, Dustin Martin, Richmond. I don't know. It's like, did he really deserve it over someone else? I think there's a bit of favouritism somewhere, but I'm not sure where exactly that falls.
Yeah, definitely. And even just on that, obviously, I'm a Carlton man and I was bound to say it, but even Jacob Wiedering sort of being snubbed there as well. I mean, he kept sort of all these gun forwards to either goalless or maybe like to a limited amount of touches, like, Tom Lynch, Tom Hawkins, all these gun big forwards. So it was really unlucky for Wiedering to get brought in.
I
But Sonny,
think also,
yeah.
I wanted to touch on Stephen May, who Sonny mentioned it before the podcast, actually. If you look at it, he only conceded, I think it was 10 goals for the whole year.
Yep.
I mean, and he didn't even make the list of 40. So, I don't know. There's just a lot of question marks, again, around that whole favouritism thing. Because I think they've just turned a blind eye to him.
Yeah, definitely. It does feel as though a little bit that the AFL might just be trying to push in some top quality and AFL superstars. Like as I touched on before, maybe Bontempelli and all of these types of players. Maybe just to make it sound as good a team as it is, just for the media, maybe just a little bit. But anyway, Sonny, I want to get your view on it as well.
Just like all you guys said there, like I just would rather the selectors choose actual actual people that play in the forward line instead of midfielders that go forward sometimes on occasions. They might play 30% of the game in the forward line, rather than put stock standard forward, like the best two forward flankers in the competition, the best two pockets in the competition, and then maybe add like a Dangerfield or a Dusty on the bench instead of chucking them in the forward line just because they're a big name. They might have had an all right year, but definitely they don't deserve the credit that the media is giving them. They should be the All Australian team. They need to give light on players that aren't necessarily well known and that are having great years. Like forward pocket, like Dan Butler, for example. He had a breakout year this year. He's a proper forward flanker, and he doesn't even make the team. But you put Marcus Bontempelli, a midfielder. Like I love Marcus Bontempelli, go for the Bulldogs, but he shouldn't be in the forward line whatsoever. They should be putting a stock standard forward flanker. That's where they stuck that up every single year, I reckon. They need to go back to the basics and just six backline, six midfield, six forward line, and just the interchange. That's what I reckon.
Like this year, I've seen Dan Butler and Tom Papley, bring their team together with their forward line performances. And yet you're putting Dustin Martin there, someone who plays full forward very stock standardly, just for the sake of, I know he's had a good season, but if you're going to put him somewhere, you either put him on the bench, you put him in the midfield, or you don't have him in the team, because that lack of balance where there's three midfielders out of six forwards, I just don't really value the team that much when the balance is off.
Yeah, definitely. If that's the case, the AFL could almost make a whole team of just midfielders, because they're the ones effectively who are getting most of the ball week in, week out. But anyway, I just wanted to quickly touch on, just before we move on to our finals, our week one finals predictions and tips. Obviously, the captaincy was given to Patrick Dangerfield, and sort of maybe, I think maybe Travis Boak may have been snubbed again. Look, Travis Boak is one of those players that once he retires, I mean, I'm not saying he won't, but once he retires, you'll think to yourself, maybe, he was just one of those players that was unlucky not to win a Brownlow. He was one of those players unlucky, like to not get a captaincy in the All Australian, and again, he's just been robbed. And I feel it's just so unlucky for him, because he's had such a great career, and maybe he just deserves one of these things, as does Pendlebury, for example. Like, these types of players are the ones that I'm referring to. I'll get someone to jump in there, have their thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, this year's really showed us how good he can be at, at that older age. And I feel that, because Dangerfield is so loved by the whole, football community, whether you go for
Sorry,
Geelong
and
or
I
not.
mean, he captained his club to finish off first on the ladder as well. I just thought I'd touch on that as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, so like I was saying, Marlon, yeah, thanks for that, mate. Just he's someone who's, been so good for so long. So has Dangerfield, but I feel that, like Marlon just touched on, which I was going to touch on, he's, what's the word? He's taken his club, to from a team that, it was struggling a little bit to be a team now that's, on the top of the leaderboard and going into the finals with, a strong team. I feel that he should have been captain, and once again got robbed.
Look, I think that's a very valid point, and all of these, they're fair points, and the fact that he could potentially poll well in the Brownlow this year, but I ultimately think that that's more the smaller picture for these players, making the All-Australian and having listed as captain. I think it's more the premiership that they care about. So although Travis Boak, didn't get captain, I think he's probably, we should look at Port Adelaide as a whole and think that maybe it's not, we should look at, he didn't get captain, but rather they focus on, I want to win the premiership sort of thing. I don't know, I'm not really expressing myself in the way that I want to get my point across, but basically I think that this is such a smaller picture in comparison to football as a whole.
Sonny, go ahead.
Well, yeah, just like Connor said, like, what would you rather? Would you rather be a premiership captain or an All-Australian team captain? You know what I mean? Because, like, exactly what Connor said. But also, like, I know you said he might not be, like he would be one of those players, like a what-if player, like Pendlebury, what if he won a Brownlow? But I don't think he'll be dwelling too much on that, the fact that he didn't get an All-Australian captain. Like, tell me last year who the captain was of the All-Australian team. Exactly. Like,
Gotcha.
no one really knows. No one takes too much of a notice.
You're right, but I just feel like it's just reward for effort that's just lacking right now. Like, I mean, Patrick Dangerfield, yeah, he had a good season. He's not even a captain at the Geelong Football Club, and they finished in the top 4. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, but that's not what
Travis
they...
Boak, yeah, I know, I understand. But Travis Boak is a captain. He's brought his team to the top of the ladder from finishing outside of the 8. He's performed well all year long. I just feel like just show someone reward for such a great year. You know what I mean? Don't just base it off someone who's been in the All-Australian team 7 times and is a great player overall. He's won a couple of Brownlows. But I don't know. I guess everyone has a different opinion.
Yeah, it really could go for anyone, really.
Well, I completely agree. But, like, I don't think... Like, yeah, Travis Boak should have been captain, but I don't think it's going to matter too much in the end. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Well, anyway, I guess we've sort of dissected the All-Australian squad in quite amount of detail as well. But I want to move on to the week. Well, obviously, as I touched on earlier, the home and away season has finally come to an end, and now we're looking forward to having a week break and then going into the week 1 of finals. So the first game that we've got is Port Adelaide versus the Geelong Cats at Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide's home game, a battle of first versus fourth. Connor, I want to get your take on who you think will win that one.
Oh, look, I think we saw such a strong performance from Geelong against Port Adelaide earlier in the year at the Gabba. And I'm going to say Geelong.
Metricon.
Oh, sorry, Metricon. And I want to say Geelong. However, I think Port Adelaide are right in it because as Josh has mentioned multiple times throughout the year, Geelong do have a tendency to sort of not show up and play their best footy in finals. However, I do think Geelong is the better team, although Port Adelaide have finished top of the ladder. So all in all, I think you have Charlie Dixon down one end and Hawkins down the other. They're both going to be double teamed, I reckon. And I think that Geelong have the better forward line to step up and win the game compared to Port Adelaide. So I'd stick with the Cats.
Yeah, Connor, I couldn't agree with you more. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to that reputation that Geelong have as just not a final side. I've been watching Geelong for years. I've been let down again and again. But you never know. They could one day wake up. Maybe Sydney was a wake-up call, because obviously we had an absolutely horrendous first half and we sort of chewed back the second half, and that's something we really had to be aware of. Because it's something that we've done. That's what usually happens with these prelim finals, these qualifying finals. We rock up and we expect it, and the other team comes out harder. And even, no matter how hard we chip back, the better sides, like Port Adelaide, will, if we let them be. Even if you try to chip back, you're not going to win that game if you don't come out to play in the first quarter. So I'm going to tip Port Adelaide.
Wow, okay, fair enough. Bit unloyal once again, Josh.
Oh, come on, mate.
Been a bit of a trend. No, it's all right. James, who do you think?
I'm just going to keep it short, but I think that just based off their last week, I think Port, I think they'll start strong, and whether Geelong can go with them or not, obviously Geelong will come back and they will, fight, but I think in the end, Port will be too strong.
Yep, and Sonny?
I do reckon Geelong have the better team going into the game, but I don't know, something about Port Adelaide also playing in Adelaide. I think that'll play to their advantage a bit. And yeah, I reckon it'll definitely be close, but I reckon Port Adelaide will take it just purely based on the home ground advantage.
Yep. And Josh, I haven't really done my research too much, but do you know if there's like any sort of injuries or anyone that's going to be missing out for either team?
For the Cats, I can't recall any, except for
Yep.
Reece Stanley. Reece Stanley hasn't been in the past few weeks, but he may make a return.
Okay.
That'll be a big in for us.
Yeah,
Butters
definitely.
is coming in for Port Adelaide.
Butters is what?
Butters will be coming in.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah. Okay. So if it's battle of full strength teams, I think, home advantage for Port Adelaide. They're at the top of the ladder. But look, I don't know. Cats have a lot of experience in recent times playing finals. I don't know, and they did, sort of beat Port Adelaide earlier on in the year. So I'm going to back the Cats for this one, to be honest. I think Port Adelaide might get a bit complacent, finishing, as a minor premier. But I don't know. I think Cats will run over him with the experience and whatnot. Anyway, the game after this one, we've got the Brisbane Lions taking on the Richmond Tigers at the Gabba. The Tigers have not lost at the Gabba I can't remember how many years it was, but they have not lost at the Gabba for a number of years on end. But then again, it's the Lions' home game. So, Connor Brown, who do you think will take this one?
I'm pretty sure these two teams played the same ground last year in the finals, and I can't see Brisbane winning, to be honest. As much as it hurts me to say that, because I'm not I'd rather Brisbane win. But Richmond are just in good form. As you said, they have a good record at the Gabba. I don't think there's anything stopping them, and I just think Brisbane are too inexperienced. They won't have enough players to sort of step up for them, and their goal kicking is going to be an issue if they don't kick straight. That could cost them a game, and I think overall, Tom Lynch out the back, probably kick another 4. And then I think it's just Richmond's game.
Yep. Keep in mind, Harris Andrews is a possibility at returning for this game as well. But yeah, anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in. James, who do you think?
I think that, Richmond have been, pretty much the team to beat for the past, 2 to 3 years. And I think that, this year's not really going to change. And with Harris Andrews, being a possibility, it just frees up Tom Lynch to run amok, if not Jack Riewoldt as well. So I feel that Brisbane are undermanned against a strong Richmond outfit.
Yep. Josh?
Yeah, look, obviously we've got 2 good teams going at it, but I think Brisbane really heavily outweigh Richmond in terms of a quality team. Like, obviously, Richmond have Dustin Martin, Jack Rewalt, all this and that, a bunch of good big names on paper, but they also have arts and a lot of these players who still have a lot of development to go through, whereas Brisbane's list is really strong. But obviously last year we saw a pretty strong Richmond performance compared to a pretty poor Brisbane performance. And if we see that again, then the players won't matter. It'll all come down to who comes out the hardest. So I'm going to back Richmond for this one.
Yep, awesome. And Sonny, who do you think?
I reckon, like Connor said, it's the exact same finals game as last year. But I reckon this year coming in, Brisbane have more experience now. They've played a final series. It's at the Gabba. They've had a much better year this year, and I reckon something's telling me that Brisbane are gonna shock the AFL, and after this heavily be the premiership favourites and beat Richmond.
Yep. And for me, look, to be honest, this one doesn't even need to be dissected. I just think Tigers, whether you guys like it or not, I think Tigers are the team to beat. They're the best team in the AFL at the moment. And yeah, I don't think the Lions will come near them, to be honest. I think it'll be a blowout. Anyway, moving on to the third game of the finals, we have the St. Kilda Saints taking on the Western Bulldogs at the Gabba. Connor Brown.
I just think Bulldogs have been in better form. So to be honest, I'm just going the Dogs because I think the Saints have got Jack Steele. They've got Dan Hanbury, who's sort of returning from an injury. You know, he's played one game. But to be honest, I think the Dogs should be favourites here. I think they've had a good run in going into finals now, beating good teams. You know, they knocked off Freo last week, who arguably have also been in good form towards the end of their season. And Saints, I just argue, haven't been in the best of form. We've seen good glimpses of them throughout the year, but I think the midfield of, you know, Bont, Dunkley, Smith, McRae, it's just going to be too much for the Saints.
Yep. And James, who do you think, the Saints or the Doggies?
I go with Connor Brown. It's going to keep it short. I'm going to go for the Dogs.
Okay, fair enough, mate. Josh Cuppen.
I think St. Kilda have a lot to prove. I think St. Kilda are going to hold on to this opportunity that they have, first final series in 9 years. And overall, they've just got the better team on paper. You know, players like Jack Steele and all that. I've just, you know, he'd be one of my favourites for the Brownlow. Obviously, he was just named in the All-Australian team. So I've got a good feeling about St. Kilda.
Okay. And Sonny, I know it's your Doggies as well. So who do you think?
Oh, well, I definitely can't go against the Bulldogs. I do agree with Josh. They do have a pretty solid team. I don't know. I don't know if they have a lot of experience in the finals. I know Dan Hanbury has a lot of experience playing in premierships and grand finals, but I don't know if the rest of the team have too much experience in that big spotlight. It's at the Gabba, so it's kind of neutral territory for both teams. You know, no one's got an advantage there. I don't know. I think our form has just been, we've had hurdles to overcome. Like we needed to win our games, not like the last 4 games, and we overcome all those hurdles. And I don't think we're just going to stop now. We had a couple of injuries. There's a week's break. Hopefully Wallace and Norton will be back. And I reckon that it's just I reckon the roller coaster isn't just going to stop now. I reckon there's another hurdle in front of us and we can leap over it. And I reckon, yeah, the Bulldogs will beat St. Kilda.
Fair enough, mate. Well, I'm going to oppose that. And I think, look, the Saints are obviously, when they're on. You know, they beat the reigning premiers in Richmond. They beat the minor premiers this year, Port Adelaide. They came close to Brisbane as well on that one occasion. Look, I think when they're mentally switched on and they're playing at their best, they can beat anyone, obviously. So it's just a matter of whoever's more mentally switched on the day will get the win. But like I said, if it's a battle of, you know, the two teams playing at their best footy, I've got to go with the Saints. So that's my tip. And last but not least, we have another elimination final between the Eagles, who just unfortunately missed out on a top 4 position, take on James, your Magpies at Optus Stadium. So it's the Eagles' home game. Connor Brown, who do you think?
Look, there's been talk that, Collingwood could be a sort of underdog in the finals, but I just don't think they're going to get over West Coast in Perth. I think it's too big of an ask. That's where West Coast play their best footy, and it's unfortunate for Collingwood. Because at another ground I could be saying Collingwood, but I think West Coast are just going to be too strong.
Yep, that's fair enough. James, your Magpies, mate. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, look, Moen. I don't really have a lot to say. Recent form has been pretty disappointing, and I feel like trying to beat West Coast is very big ask, and yeah, just based off our recent form, I don't think we'll do it. I'm still going to back my boys, always going to back them, but yeah, I just think that the task is too big to ask.
Yep, fair enough. And Josh, what about you?
This game could be close. Home ground advantage wise, it played such a big part for West Coast in the early part of the season before they sort of relocated to Queensland and all that, which is where their form kind of dipped. So I reckon the home ground being at Optus Stadium will do them lots of favours, and I think they'll win this one.
Yep, and Sonny.
Yeah, look, I definitely don't see West Coast losing at home, but no discredit to Collingwood. Like, I reckon if Collingwood were fully healthy, they had all their stars in, Sidebottom, Jeremy Howe. If they were fully healthy with a full team, I think they could. I think they almost. It would be close. They're two really good lists, but yeah, I just don't see West Coast losing at home.
Yeah, fair enough. And look, I sort of agree with Connor and Sonny that it's just sort of really unlucky that Collingwood has to face the Eagles at the Eagles' home ground at Optus Stadium. And then as Sonny said as well, if Collingwood had their full squad in, would have made it a lot more of a contest. Look, I'm not saying that Collingwood are no chance, but it's obviously going to make the job a lot tougher. But look, they've sort of played some good footy towards, in the last sort of month. So like I said, it could be anyone's game, but my gut feeling is that West Coast will get over the line. Is there anything else from you guys before we sort of wrap up? Okay, fair enough. That was really awkward. Anyway, okay, guys, look. But anyway, that concludes episode 10 of the Benchwarmers podcast. We look forward to seeing you after the first week of finals. Thank you, guys, and peace out.